You are a single mother of 8, raising your children in an IDP camp in Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory after fleeing a brutal attack by the Boko Haram terror group. The makeshift school offers little hope for your children's education, and your once thriving food business barely keeps you afloat now. Aid is dwindling and your needs keep growing. How do you cope with the demolition threats to your camp, your son's arrest, and the confiscation of bikes meant to provide income, when every attempt to build a better life feels futile? Welcome to Vestiges of Violence.
Here, we talk about survivors. For Human Angle,
I am Hajara. Amina is a 43-year-old woman whose life changed over a decade ago on a Tuesday when Boko Haram attacked Goza in Borno State, northeastern Nigeria. For 3 weeks, they lived in fear, trapped in their own home, burying those who were killed and praying for it to end. She stayed with her children and younger siblings, while many of her relatives managed to escape. They kept her updated as they fled, and once she was sure they had all left safely, she decided it was time for her and her family to leave too. Even the terrorists were forcing people out, whipping and chasing them away. Amina and her family fled to Mubi, in Adamawa State, northeastern Nigeria, where her husband found a place for them. Eventually, she left Maiduguri to stay with her relatives, while her husband and co-wife remained in Mubi. What they did not know was that his neighbor, who had become like a friend, was actually a Boko Haram member. When the insurgents attacked Mubi, Amina's husband, Sufa, urged the neighbor to flee with him, but the man refused, saying nothing would happen. But Sufa sensed the danger, so he ran home, jumped the fence and escaped. He told his co-wife to gather the children and run too. Soon after, the neighbor, now dressed in a soldier's uniform, came searching for Sufa. He stormed through the house, flinging doors open, shouting his name and banging on the walls. He couldn't find him. He fired 2 gunshots into the air before leaving. When the neighbor later reached Sufa over the phone, he threatened to find and kill him. Amina had been married before she got married to Sufa, her previous husband's brother being the chairperson of the school her children attended. He encouraged her to come to Abuja, where she could continue her food business. At the time, there was no official IDP camp, just a gathering of displaced people cramped in a makeshift room.
there were over 10 of us in it. It was so small that you could only lie on your side and couldn't turn until you got up, adjusted, and then lay down again on the other side. No organizations knew we were here, so we didn't have any aid coming in.
They faced many threats living in the camp, the first being the government demolitions. When the agency arrived to tear down their buildings, they decided to appeal to the authorities. They organized themselves and all stood together, children in the front, followed by the women, and then the men at the back.
One of the men who came and saw us was moved to tears. He called the minister and told him they couldn't go through with the demolition because women and children were everywhere. So they retreated. Eventually, the minister came and instructed us to put up a sign declaring it an IDP camp.
That was when people started to notice the camp, and aid, food, and supplies began to arrive. A container was brought to serve as a makeshift school. Meanwhile, Amina continued her food business. She bought motorbikes for her sons, so they would make a living off commercial motorcycling, but one after the other, the bikes were seized by the authorities. Amina bought 9 in total. None of them were ever retrieved. Once, a bike was taken the very day she bought it. On another occasion, both the motorbike and her son, along with other young men, were taken away during what the authorities called a night patrol. Her son was at home when they came. For 4 months, Amina did not know where he was, and sadly, he passed away not very long after she finally found him. One of Amina's biggest worries is her children's education. The makeshift school in the camp doesn't provide a solid foundation. The classrooms are overcrowded and the children do not receive adequate individual attention. Many of them still cannot read or write a proper sentence. Families who can afford it send their children to private schools, but she simply cannot manage the cost of fees and daily transport. Amina still runs her food business, selling rice, beans, and yam. Back in Goza, she could sell a whole bag of rice and 15 tubers of yam daily. But here, it takes her 4 days to sell the same amount of food. At some point, she considered going back home. But when she did, the insecurity was unbearable. People would eat at her shop, head to their farms, and later she would hear the news that they had been killed. Gunfire and bomb blasts were constant. She couldn't stay. After a little over a year, she returned to Abuja.
I'm grateful I have what to feed my children. Having a business makes it a little easier because at least there's food to eat, even if there's no money left to save.
Healthcare is another struggle. There's a small container that serves as a clinic, but medicines like painkillers and diabetes medication are no longer available. Amina remembers when she gave birth and fell very ill due to diabetes. A woman who had visited the camp took her to the hospital and told the doctors to do whatever they needed to do, no matter the cost. Her newborn was taken care of. Every day, the woman gave Amina money for food. When she was discharged, she gave her money and baby supplies, but Amina never saw her again.
She was like an angel. She told me to ask her whatever I needed because I'll never see her again. And to this day, I still haven't.
The camp receives donations, but over time it was dwindled. Amina says she suspects that the inflation and the state of economy have affected it because last year they got consistent aid from various organizations and individuals. If Amina could design her future, she would leave the camp and rent a stable home. Her children would get proper education and attend Islamic school. She would continue her business. If there were no insurgency, she would return home to Goza. This episode was reported by Sabika Bello, presented by Hajara Ibrahim. Multimedia editor is Anthony Asanota. Executive producer is Ahmed Salkina. In order to protect the lives and identities of victims, we use voice actors for this episode. If you or anyone you know have stories to share on vestiges of violence, do not hesitate to share with us.